Welcome. This is the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is where you'll learn strategies to help you achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host, Rod Khleif, has owned over 2,000 homes and apartments, and he brings experts in all aspects of real estate investment and management onto the show. Now, here's your host, Rod Khleif.
Welcome to another edition of Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I'm thrilled you're here. Before we get to today's awesome guest, I want to mention a couple of quick things. First being, if you like what you hear on the show, by all means, subscribe to us on iTunes so that you never miss an episode. I also want to let you know that every week I also do one of two short 5 to 10 minute shows called Your Driving Force Success Tip or Your Real Estate Tip of the Week. The Driving Force Success Tip is where I share with you the most valuable things I've learned about the psychology of success. Many people don't realize that 80% of your success in anything is your psychology and 20% is the actual mechanics. And the real estate tip of the week is just that. It's a cash flow tip, short but valuable tip from multifamily real estate investing for cash flow. I hope you'll join us on those shows as well. But most importantly, I really want to hear what you guys think. If you have any comments or questions or even suggestions for guests or topics you'd like to hear on the show, please let me know. You can email me directly at rod@rodkhleif.com. That's rod@rod, KHLEIF as in Frank.com. And I'd love to hear from you. All right, let's get this party started. I know you're going to get incredible value from the man we're interviewing today. His name is Jason Balin, and he's a successful real estate investor and hard equity lender. He's based out of Columbia, Maryland, and he concentrates the majority of his time as a partner in Hard Money Bankers. And prior to that, he founded several real estate investment firms and brings years of real estate experience. He was a real estate agent, a mortgage broker, a real estate investor. And we're going to talk today a little bit about his portfolio, but mostly about hard money lending, so you guys understand it. Jason, I'm really happy to have you on the show.
Thanks, Rod. I'm glad to be here.
So expand a little on my introduction and tell us how you got going in real estate and how you ended up in hard equity lending.
Sure, no problem. So in the early 2000s, I started investing in real estate. It kind of was just by accident. I was a real estate agent. I was also a mortgage broker. And, the market was pretty good there. And I was doing some loans for some guys that were flipping properties and owned some rental properties, and it seemed interesting. So my business partner, Chris, and I started acquiring some real estate. We started buying some properties, and we actually used a hard money lender. And we found out that we could get the majority of the acquisition price and the majority of the construction costs for some of these properties. And it was kind of an interesting business model. And because we were investing in real estate ourselves, we made a little bit of money, not a ton of money, but we made a little bit of it. And we decided, hey, I really, really like the finance side of things, the lending side of things. And we kind of just, dove right in. We raised a little bit of capital and we lent it out. And it kind of, went from there. As we were lending, we also were brought a lot of opportunities from some of our borrowers of properties that they owned, either if they were commercial properties or single family flips or multifamily properties. And we started doing some joint ventures with them where we would put up the capital and they would, do, some of the heavy lifting.
Do all the heavy lifting, right.
Exactly. So that kind of got us into where we are today, where, we're obviously our core business is focused on the lending side, but there's a lot of opportunities out there, and it enabled us to buy a bunch of properties. And
I understand you've got about 20 units, value over $2 million. That's fantastic, and I know it didn't take you long to do that. How long ago did you start buying?
So we actually acquired all of those units within the last 2 years.
Yeah, see, that's very, very good and very powerful. So let's get into hard equity lending. Let's pretend for a minute that someone's on the show really doesn't know anything about it. Can you speak to what hard equity lending is?
Sure. For the most part, it's a short-term collateral-based loan, and the collateral is obviously the particular property that you're interested in, and we're lending money based on that asset, on that collateral. And in the multifamily / single family world, we lend about 65% of that value or that completed value. A lot of the loans that we do have a construction component to it. So somebody buys a property and it needs a little bit of construction work, and then the value after that would be, hopefully a little bit higher. We lend based off of that, the term after repair value,
right?
On these particular things. So just like any lender, we do pull credit. We do look at cash flow and the capacity of the repayment and making monthly payments. But the 90% of our underwriting is based on that piece of collateral and what your intentions are and what the plan is, going to be, after you acquire it.
So give us a typical example of, and I know these loans, because they're collateral based, are from my experience, because I've used them as well a lifetime ago. I know that there's points and the rates typically significantly higher than any sort of conventional loan. Give me an idea of what a person can expect if they approach a hard equity lender like yourself. And by the way, guys, Jason lends in Maryland, Virginia, D.C., Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and his website is hardmoneybankers.com, and it'll be in the show notes here as well. But back to my question: so what can they expect to pay? And I know some of you are going to be surprised at the amounts here, but there's a real value, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. Exactly.
Yeah. So the rates and the points on paper obviously are higher than your typical bank would be. I can, argue that side of it to explain why it's justified, but back to
I'll do that for you in just a minute, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's anywhere between, right now the going rate's about 13% rate and 3 or 4 points. And the rate obviously is amortized, or not amortized, but it's based off of annualized over a year. So it costs borrowers maybe a point or so a month, which is 13% annualized, plus 3 or 4 points on the front end. About 8 or 10 years ago, rates were a little bit higher. Right now, there's a lot of larger players kind of getting into the space, and there's a lot more liquidity. So, but about 13% and 3 or 4 points.
Wow, that's higher than I thought you'd say, and I guess that just speaks to how long it's been since I've done hard money lending or hard money borrowing. I remember 10 and 5, but I will tell my listeners, guys. If you've got a phenomenal deal, I can remember putting houses on credit cards and putting duplexes on credit cards. If the deal is great, and paying 18% interest back when prior to Reagan being president, and we had incredible interest rates, very high interest rates. But the whole thing is based on the deal and the return on the deal. So, sometimes this is a great way to make something happen. And now realizing, of course, that, if you find a duplex that you can get at a price well enough to use a hard money lender, it's going to need work. No, there's no question. There may be some markets that's not the case, but in 95% of the markets out there, if you're going to be able to buy something that you can get to a 65% of that you can buy for 65% of what it ultimately will be worth, then it's that after repaired value, then it's going to be a property that needs work. So how do you structure those deals? Do you ever provide any of that money, the fix up money in a deal?
We do.
Okay.
In the perfect market, perfect world, let's say you're buying a property at 65 cents on the dollar minus construction costs, which is the target for the fix and flip, for instance. For the target, that's a good target. It's a little challenging to get those in a lot of markets right now. But in essence, if the resale value or the value of the asset, for instance, when I say value of the asset, maybe you're not selling it, maybe you're going to hold it for long-term rental. Assuming, let's say that's $200,000 at the end of the day, and you're able to buy it for $100,000, and the construction costs are $30,000, we're financing pretty much the majority of that acquisition and that construction.
Wow. Yeah, that's, and there are deals like that out there. Yes, they are hard to find. These are the kinds of deals you probably have to get through guerrilla marketing, direct seller on seller marketing, rather than dealing with a broker. But and then guys, my whole podcast is about buy and hold. It is not about flipping. I've done lots of flipping, but you all know I've owned over 2,000 houses, and I tell people don't do that. Buy multifamily. And so, a hard money lender can be a solution, a temporary solution while you reposition a property. And then get good long-term financing on it once it's stabilized. So that's something to remember, and that is what I would suggest you do. I'm like I told you, I'm just not a flipper. So Jason, tell me, let's talk to your real estate experience and some of the suggestions that you might have. What suggestions would you have for someone starting out in real estate? Any ideas how you could direct them?
Yeah, no problem. So I usually combine things into two phases, like the education phase and then the action phase. And I believe that they both have to kind of grow at the same time. The last thing you want is someone that knows everything about real estate, but doesn't take any action, never does it. And on the other side, you don't know anything, and then you're just an action taker, and then you're just being irresponsible and putting other people in danger because you're getting involved in deals that you just might not be ready for. So obviously educating yourself related to the types of deals that you're in, no matter what, there's no right or wrong real estate strategy, multifamily, flips, wholesale. There's no right or wrong. It's just, figure out kind of what makes the most sense for you, and then hopefully diversify into a bunch of different things. And, like you said, I noticed you mentioned this in the intro related to, there's a huge mental side of this, and kind of telling yourself and believing in yourself that you actually can do this, which you can. I mean, most people have the ability to do this. So if you educate yourself properly, you kind of mentally decide, like, this deal is right. These are all the reasons why I think this is right. And I'm going to take action, and I'm going to bite the bullet, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to succeed.
Wow. No, that is fantastic advice. I love the parallel, the way you articulated action and education, because you're absolutely right. There are a lot of people that know this, that have gone through courses, read all the books, and never take action. And there are people like me that took tons of action and never did any of the courses when he got started and made every possible mistake you can ever imagine, and some of them were really, really bad. But I love the parallel track, and I'm going to actually use that again myself. I'm going to steal that from you. That is awesome. So,
no problem.
so tell me about how you manage your property. Let's talk to that for a minute. Do you self-manage? Do you use a management company, and why?
Good question. So, okay. We, as you probably know, having one property, for instance, is manageable yourself. And then you start having one and be like, wow, this is a real pain in the neck. Then you have a few, and then it's almost impossible. So we went from self-managing one, I don't know, maybe probably just one. Then we got a property manager, an external property manager, and that got us to about 8 or 9. And we just clashed in so many ways. He wasn't able to provide the reports that we wanted. It was a clunky process, and we're active investors, and we want to be hands-on, and it just didn't work great. So fortunately, we have, in my lending office, we have quite a few staff members, and there was one girl in particular named Julie who kind of was a great fit, and we're like, listen, maybe you could help us out and be our in-house property manager, do some leasing for us. These are some of the responsibilities, and she was interested in it. So we brought everything back in-house when we got to about 8 or 10 properties, and everything's managed, through, inside our operation. And that's fantastic, and that's what I suggest on this podcast, and many people have heard me say it. If you hire a management company, you've got to manage them, and the chances of finding the right fit, I don't know. I've interviewed people on this show that have 35,000 units, and they self-manage, and people that have a dozen duplexes, and they self-manage, and there are some
so-called gurus out there that'll tell you to hire management companies, but I disagree completely. So let me ask you this: did you have any mentors as you were getting started? Anybody that helped you get going?
I have ongoing mentors every day. I've got
good answer.
I've got business coaches. So what got me into real estate investing was, and I don't know if this guy is even still around, but I went to a Mark Sumter event, and I couldn't tell you if he was credible or not, and to this day I still have no idea. All I know is I went to an event in Arizona in early 2000s, and it got me into it. I was really stoked. I probably bought more courses than I should have, but I gobbled them all up, and kind of that, my business partner Chris and I, who everything we do and own, we split everything 50-50. That's always been our setup from the beginning, and he was there with me, and we always laugh about it. Like, that was the first step to get us into things. And we're constantly buying courses or spending big money on consulting packages sometimes of all kinds of different aspects. And, my philosophy with anything is if I can get one tidbit out of it, no matter the price, it'll back out. And we have ongoing.
I couldn't agree more. It's funny. I've got every course known to man, and the same exact thing. And I tell the story that my son keeps coming up to me and saying, "Why are you buying these courses? Why do you keep going to these boot camps? You could teach this stuff." And you always get something. You always, I completely agree that the education never stops. Now, let's talk about your motivation. You heard me talk about the psychology that I get into in some of my smaller episodes. Where do you get your drive? What makes you jump out of bed in the morning?
That's a really good, insightful question. And since we started this lending company about 10 years ago, I was so into it right at the beginning. Like it was one of those things that clicked. I had a bunch of different other types of real estate strategies I was working on. And to me, this lending side and this finance side really clicked with me. And, I've just tried to be at 110% every day. And since then, it was just one of those things that I really enjoyed doing. I really got, there's two rewarding things that I get on a regular basis, in office, for instance. And that's, number one, we have about 10 people on our team that, rely on, I rely on them, but they also rely on us that we run a good, honest, ethical business and that we're going to be around for a long time. Right. So we have a real nice office with a lot of really good employees, probably some of the best ones we've kind of had. And, for me to see them motivated and want to work hard, that motivates me a lot. And also, I still get how a lot of real estate investors are kind of, they're just into the deal. They like the creativity of it. Everyone's different. We've done over 1,000 loans and, 200 flips and then our 20 rentals. So every day I'm looking at deals over deals over deals, and they're all very, very different. And I get a huge high from figuring out the best structure some of these things.
Love it. And I feel exactly the same way. Guys, learn to love this space, because you jump out of bed in the morning to go treasure hunt for deals. And great answer. And that would be my answer as well. But on both fronts, I've got an incredible team here. We've got 60 people, and we're and it's taken a long time to get an incredible team, and we've kissed a lot of frogs. But I tell you, those people will make or break you. And then your comments about loving real estate and loving what you do. Listen, if you don't love it, then it's work. If you love it, it's play. And I couldn't agree with you more. So that was one of my questions. How many employees? That's great. Now I'd like you to share a war story and a victory story that have occurred for you. And a war story where you really got your butt kicked or you got bloodied, and the takeaway from it, and then maybe a big success story.
Okay. So war story, a lot of the war stories are more deal driven than anything else. The reason they're deal driven is, I'm not just responsible for company capital, but we have private investors that have capital in our deals as well. And, we've had a very, very, very clean track record. And typically The deals that have kind of gone bad have gone bad for third party, other reasons.
Sure.
Not necessarily the collateral play, just stuff that you couldn't dream of.
Things out of your control. Yeah.
Okay, good way to put it.
Yeah.
And, stuff like that, you have investors down your back and things like that. It's an uncomfortable situation, and you got to do whatever you have to do to work things out. And, we've had a few situations where, for instance, a property was burnt down, an insurance carrier wouldn't pay us out. And it was a large $1 million property. And
done that.
They took the stand of, you're right, we should pay this out, but you can come and sue us and,
right.
And get it out of us, which we ultimately got the majority of it back. And maybe that kind of turned into somewhat of a success story. But, it was 3 years of agony of, looking at a non-performing loan on our books every day.
Wow.
Plus investors kind of down our throats. And listen, we were honest, transparent the whole time, and everybody knew what was going on. So it actually wasn't all that bad. It was more, we probably hit ourselves personally. We probably took it out on us, I should say, a lot harder than it really was, because the investors knew it wasn't really our fault. But at the same time, there's real people's money that was on the line.
Sure. I just, before you tell the success story, I will tell you, I had a similar situation on a huge scale. I had, when Hurricane Charlie hit Florida years ago, I had about 375 houses in Charlotte County where it hit hard, and many of them were uninhabitable, and the insurance company screwed us around in a big way. And it was a nightmare. We had to sue or threaten suit. I don't know if we actually filed suit, but it got real ugly as well, and that is not a fun place to be.
Sure.
But anyway, so how about a great success story?
Yeah, I think that one's harder.
Is it? Okay. Well, you're obviously very successful, so you probably have a whole bunch of them. If you've done 1,000 loans, of course you're going to have some war stories, and some of them are going to be big successes. So that's okay. I won't. You don't have to worry about that one. But Let me ask you a couple of general questions that sometimes I ask that I'm usually intrigued with the answers. What's the best advice you've ever received?
This is probably more on like the best rewarding advice I got, but we have a private investor of ours that's invested capital with us. He's extremely successful, and he's praised me a few times related to how comfortable he is with us, for the most part, managing his money, lending money out on his behalf and things like that. I don't know. It was a very big confidence booster. So I think if, you're passionate about what you're into, and somebody who you truly believe is...
And respect.
Respect. There you go. And they praise you, I think you can take that a long way and give you some confidence.
That feels great.
To know that you're doing the right thing.
Absolutely, yeah. That adds wings that adds air to your wings. Yeah, no, that's great. Well, listen, we're going to wrap it up, and I've got one last question to ask you. Leave one last little bit of advice for an aspiring real estate investor, somebody that's listening to this, wanting to do what you're doing, what other people out there are doing. What would you tell them?
So I think we're in a great real estate market right now, although I'll believe that there's money to be made in any real estate market. Doesn't matter what it is. Obviously, you have to adjust accordingly. I don't have any high-level degrees, or I'm not the smartest person, in the mix. I wasn't a great student, but I finally found something I was really, really interested in, and I was passionate about it, and I had a drive for it, and didn't let anything stand in my way. And as we all know, there's a lot of naysayers out there, and don't listen to what you're reading sometimes. Find a role model or a coach or somebody who you look up to that is in the path that you want to be in, and follow exactly what the heck they're doing. No matter what, just follow them down the road, do exactly what they're doing. If you can't get in front of them, offer them money, offer them whatever you have to. Say, I really want to do what you're doing. Please help me, and I'll follow exactly what you tell me. I feel like that's always a great way to kind of get what you want, is figure out who's doing it the correct way and, start with that.
Great advice. Anytime you can model somebody that's successful, that's one of the biggest secrets to success. Hey, thank you so much for your valuable time today, Jason. It's been great. And anybody that wants to get in touch with you, your website will be on the show notes. And I hope we can stay in touch and follow each other's successes.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe. And then take a moment to visit iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and review. For more resources to connect with us further, please visit our website at lifetimecashflowpodcast.com. Tune in next week for our next show.